And we're live. Cool. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to invite you to our first panel webinar discussion of 2021. So for 1 hour, our VP of Customer Success, Annika Zuber, Rick Adams, and Gurpram Sagu will discuss the impact of digital CS and how to manage customer feedback in the digital era. We're super excited you all are joining. I see a lot of people coming in, so that's awesome. That will continue for a little while. Our panelists will be diving into all of the above and then some. But first, I wanted to do a little housekeeping as people are still joining. So this webinar is a panel format, meaning that I will try and get our panel to share as much wisdom as I can. But there's also a role for you. So if you have any questions or want a panelist to explain a little bit more about something, feel free to just ask in the Q&A or ask in the chat. I will try and keep as much of an eye on the questions as possible and fit as many in there as possible. But you can also rest assured that questions that we don't get answered live will still be answered or followed up on afterwards. So no worries there. I already see some questions in the chat. Yes, this webinar will be recorded and the recording will also be shared afterwards. So no worries there. You're getting an email with a link or a direct link to the recording, but also please stick around and engage in the chat. Thank you very much. Yeah, I've already started the first poll. So if you're into polling, go have a look. And I will now firstly introduce our panel. First up, let me remove this screen very quickly. Let me see, slides. Go away, slide. Thank you very much. There, now we can see a little better. First up, we have Annika Zuber. She's the VP of Customer Success at Untitled and is an industry thought leader, co-founder of the CSM London community, a podcast host and a regular speaker. She scaled customer success efforts at B2B startups as well as scale-ups, and actually, and I think this is a funny one, was a digital CSM before a digital CSM was actually a thing. Check her LinkedIn, it's actually true. And I've been told that all she wants in return for her community efforts is a Peloton, which apparently is a bike. Hello, Annika.
Hi, Remco. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be here and chat all about this. Hello from London. I also see some other people joining from London. I'm really excited to chat with everyone. The accent is American, originally from California, but been living abroad for 10 years. And yes, I do just want a Peloton for all my customer success efforts. So yeah, I'm really excited to get into this topic because I was a customer success coach was my title before. So I'm excited to talk more about this.
Cool. Moving on to Rick Adams. He's the CEO and founder of Practical CSM. Rick is a business outcomes and customer success expert and a published author. His company offers best practice customer success training and certification that delivers measurable results in productivity, efficiency, and effectiveness for customer success teams, and also individual professionals looking to change or get into customer success of all levels, from beginner to seasoned experts. Hi, Rick.
Hi, Remco, and it's great to be back doing another webinar with you. I really enjoyed the last one, which was last year in, what was it, March, April, May, maybe June, I can't remember. Sometime last sort of summerish. It's great to be back, great to be talking about something that I think is very topical. Feedback is very important. The word digital is a funny word. I think you could ask 20 people what it means and get 20 different answers. So we'll see where we get with that. But very excited to be here, and yeah, great to see. Yeah, thank you to those who have registered. There's great response. I can see there's lots of people here. I've got a quick shout out to Raja Gokul Stalin there, who's just told everybody that my customer success courses are super helpful. Thank you. Really appreciate that as well.
Cool. Shameless plug-in. Let's do that as well. And then last but not least, we have Gurpram Sagu. He's the customer success manager at Planhat with over 6 years of experience as a CS lead in the SaaS industry. He's worked with global brands across the world and is an enthusiastic speaker. I've actually spoken with him before, which was a lot of fun as well. Passionate about customer success, advocacy, and community. And Gurpram is also a part-time musician and an avid record collector. So, hi, Gurpram.
Thank you so much, Remco. Hello, everyone. Joining here from Stockholm. Very, very nice to be here. And as a lot of the other wonderful people that I'm joined by today have touched on. We can talk all day about digital CS, all day about feedback. So I think it's going to be a very, very good discussion today. So thank you so much. And very, very excited to be here.
Awesome. Thanks for that. So, and then finally, because we have to, my name's Remco. I'm the VP of Marketing at Untitled, and I will try and be your host today. So, Rick, Annika, Gurprem, we're done with the intro officially. Are you ready?
Can't wait.
Awesome.
Let's do this.
Good. So, I want to start off with a topic that's being discussed frequently at the moment, which is digital-led, or tech touch customer success. And then maybe first of all, a quick fire question. So should we call it digital CS, tech touch, low touch, one-to-many CS? What's the right name for this?
Do you want me to crack in?
Just go ahead.
Oh, why not? So I think for me, the word digital is about the format of the data, not about the job. So that's my feeling on it. Now, what's in a word, right? You can call all sorts of things. And so long as everybody who you say that thing to understands what you mean, doesn't matter. So I'm not precious about it at all. But to me, digital customer success means doing customer success using data that is stored in a digital format, and following that. These days, what we really mean by digital is a bit more than that. We mean it's stored in a way that it is in the cloud and is accessible and is available and is part of the entire collection of data that we can look at and analyze and interpret and gain meaningful intelligence and meaningful understanding. And that really, to me, is what sort of the era of digital is all about. It's about turning all these like loose, funny bits of data that we've got stored in all sorts of places, some of them handwritten, some of them in Excel spreadsheets, some in Word documents, some on a laptop, some on the server, some in the cloud, some in format A, B, C, D, E, F, all in different forms, and turning that into a single unit of useful data which we can actually look at, analyze, and get meaning from. And that, to me, is what digital anything is. Including digital customer success. It's saying, well, now we've got this power in our hands, which is an amazing first time we've had it. The power of the cloud, the power of big data storage, big data analytics means we can do this for the first time. It's such a powerful thing. So it's really, to me, it's talking about the tools, and they apply whether you are a one-to-one customer success manager, you can use digital customer success techniques, or whether you're a 1 to 2,000 customer success manager who really doesn't have a lot of time to spend on any individual one customer. They don't have that luxury, but nevertheless, they can still, and in fact, perhaps will rely more upon the world of digital in certain ways. But nevertheless, I think that's how I see it. That said, I've never liked the expression low touch either, because low just doesn't sound like, that pleasant, does it? I cannot think of a better expression. So I'm not keen on low touch, tech touch. I'm not keen on any of them yet. I wish someone would find something. I'm not clever enough to come up with something good. I wish someone would. Cool.
Okay, so we're deleting all of them for Rick. Annika, Gurprem?
I was just about to challenge Rick, actually, because I think digital CS is actually scaling of customer success. So yes, totally agree, Rick, on the fact that it means, how you handle that data and how you then interpret everything. But I think digital CS is actually customer success at scale. And I'm also going to challenge the title, because I don't think tech touch, low touch sounds nice at all, or one to many. And actually, one of my first customer success jobs, as Remco mentioned, was a digital CSM, or whatever you want to call it. But we were called customer success coaches because we had a team of customers to look after. So we were the coach, we were guiding them. I know that's super corny. I even sometimes think customer success manager is a corny title, but I think of it more in the sense of handling as many accounts in a scalable manner. And when I did have that role as customer success coach, I had 2,000 clients. So it's a big portfolio. And so I definitely feel that digital CS is scalable customer success. So not only using digital formats of educating and onboarding and renewing customers, but rather also being able to handle that large portfolio. And I also hate all those one-to-many tech touch names. So that's my 2 cents on the question, Remco.
Thank you. Gurpram, anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Like any true professional, I'm going to sit on the fence in between both parties here. But I think with the ultimate manner of customer success growing so much over so many different organizations, so many more traditional, or for lack of a better term, traditional organizations now adopting customer success. There are these kind of slight changes in terms of terminology and lexicon where, we may call the role a digital CS role or a one-to-many role. And I would agree with everyone here, like some of those terms, I think we're starting to move away from that. And as we start to see this real value add of somebody servicing that large group of customers in a scalable way, we need to kind of start to brand it in a particular way now that kind of almost gives respect to that group, to give it the kind of levity that it has in an organization. So calling it digital CS is I think a great way forward for us. But ultimately, at the very kind of root of it all, we need to be fed by the data. And that's kind of where that digital approach and understanding where the data lives is going to be so powerful for that role.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Thanks for that. Yeah, in the chat, we also see a lot of people not liking the low touch or the tech touch terminology. I do always feel like that's a very... It's a very interesting thing because tech touch obviously also as a term hasn't really been new. Actually, a lot of companies and teams might probably still use it internally to, for example, segment their customer base, which then also relates to the approach that those customers might be getting from their CSMs, or sometimes not even an approach from CSMs, but something else. So how do you guys look at that? Is this something that we should even segment customer bases for?
No, I think we should. I think there should be segmentation as well. Like you should have segmentation to understand internally exactly where your customers are doing, or like whether it's, how much they're paying you or their industry or their vertical or the products they use within. If you have a multi-product organization, all of that should be segmented appropriately. But I still strongly believe that your customer journey and your touch points and all the milestones that you do have, regardless if it's tech touch, mid-touch, enterprise, all of those you should be still reaching for the same outcomes, just obviously doing it in a different manner, which is either digitally led or one-to-one led. So I still think internally it's fine to classify as tech or one-to-one or enterprise or whatever your company is calling it. But I do feel that, from the customer perspective, there's no need for them to know that, because they should have a flawless experience regardless of if they're paying you $100,000 a month or $1 a month. So yeah, that's my feeling on segmentation on that.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Like from an internal point of view, we have so many data points that are available to us. It would be a shame if we didn't utilize them in some way to really get a really great understanding of our customer. As that customer journey is designed, and we want that customer ultimately to renew, to buy more, have this great increase on net retention, advocacy, all these points that we always talk about. With all these kind of data points that we have, being able to really start to drill into that data more and start to look at, the performance and the not the empathy, but the kind of segmentation and subjective style of measurement as well will be so critical in those groups that we would have primarily just cast aside and just kind of said, okay, they're just going to be automated. We're just going to, do an email blast every quarterly newsletter goes out, but starting to really drill into that and make it so much more valuable for them will build that loyalty. And that loyalty is such a critical part of the customer journey.
Yeah, and I think that it's different for different organizations. If you have one product, and you sell one version of that product to a very similar type of customer, and all your customers are very similar, you may not need to segment your customers. Okay. If, on the other hand, you've got a wide portfolio of different products and services, and customers of a wide variety of shapes and sizes, then you may well have to segment your customers. And it comes down to a practical decision, which is, how can I service my customers' needs best? So if I can customize my services, service my customers' needs using just one process, one approach, and that suits all of them, I don't need to segment them from a customer success perspective. If, on the other hand, from a customer success perspective, I can't do that. I don't have the luxury of doing it for the ones that are not bringing in the revenues to be able to give them that. And anyway, they don't need it because they're purchasing let's say a less complicated solution that doesn't require so much customer success management services in the first place. Well, then, that's when I need to segment. So it's based on needs, really. There's no other, we don't have to. There's no rule that says you've got to, and neither is there any rule that says how many segments you need to have as well. And I would say this is don't go wild with segments, because you're just creating more pain for yourself. So you want as few as you can get away with, whilst maintaining the quality of the service that you deliver. And the decision is, are these customers alike in their needs, or are they dissimilar in their needs? And if they're dissimilar, put them into two segments.
Yeah,
that would be how I would do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think I agree with that. And also, how does that then play into what channels you're using to actually service those customers? So would you then say, for example, I now see a lot of talk about having a different customer journey for someone that you're primarily reaching through digital channels than, for example, someone that you're primarily reaching through one-on-one, like CSM contact? Or is it just all one customer journey, but certain parts of it are handled through a digital channel and certain parts of it are handled through a CSM?
Well, again, I would say, apologies for butting in again, but I would say, I would just argue that your one-on-one CSM. I mean, right now we're not talking face to face, right? We're going through a digital system to do it. Okay. And I would suggest that the vast majority right now of one-to-one CSMs are doing exactly that with their customers right now. Very few of them are driving to their customers, parking in the car park, going in and getting a nice... Remember those badges? The ones you always went, oh, damn, I forgot the badge. That seems like a long time ago to me. So I would suggest that's not the criteria. The criteria is right, again, how can we best serve our customers' needs and requirements? Are they best served with a self-service portal for that thing that we're doing, or would they actually be better served with somebody talking to them on a one-to-one basis and helping them to build a strategy over a period of time and helping them to, or would they need a few touch points from a human and then maybe some documentation to help them, or what is it that's needed in this particular instance? And that's what goes into the customer success service that we deliver to that segment, whatever that segment might be. And another thing I think we need to get over is this idea that, for example, self-service is lower quality, because I don't think it is. I actually think, personally, I mean, and maybe it's just because I'm a grumpy old man, but personally, I prefer self-service quite a lot to having to deal with human beings who I have to explain everything to. And I don't know, maybe it's just me. Actually, sometimes I think some of our most high value, most important customers might actually prefer less touch. There's a new one.
Less touch, yes.
Thank you very much. We're okay. Touch.
I couldn't agree anymore. If you think about it, like even if you're, the VP of CS and you have QBRs with every single tool, imagine how many QBRs you'd be having in a quarter. Like if I just think of the tech stack my team uses, I'd have like 10 QBRs a quarter. And I would sometimes just want an email or a webinar or some sort of other digital led content provided to me so that I can consume that in a different manner. So even if I was the biggest fish in someone else's portfolio, maybe I actually don't want that one-to-one interaction. And that's where I would say the challenge of digital CS and even feedback is totally different. And self-service doesn't have to be a dirty word, as you said it. It doesn't have to be. I sometimes prefer reading something in my own time or looking at a knowledge-based article. And that's I think the beauty of having not only tiered approaches, but different approaches for all those tiers as well. You can't just think, a one-to-one QBR in person, going to a customer meeting or taking them to dinner is going to really result in the renewal. Maybe they actually want the how-to guide, and that actually ends up in the renewal as well. So it's, I couldn't agree more that there has to be different approaches to that.
Yeah, and I think it's a very interesting point, because self-service, or just the concept of customers liking self-service, is not something new, right? It's been around for like 2 decades or something, or research at least sort of showing that customers also like to have a little bit more autonomy, and self-serve options, etc. has been around for that long at least. So why do we think it's so difficult in customer success still to completely adopt a self-serve way for certain customers? Or at least, what are the requirements that you then need as a company to do this well? When can you start?
I think I think the difficulty comes in it being difficult to actually really understand, right? Because dealing with customers in this sort of scale, in this sort of volume, I think a lot of the times it's always been kind of passed over and kind of just pushed to one side. We don't see much value to the organization by kind of servicing these in that way, or putting the time commitment there. So I think as we're now starting to see that real value add from providing this great level of service through varied channels now, where a customer is able to understand what they need to do, feel empowered to do it themselves, have that sense of accomplishment to really shout about internally to drive their own process forward themselves. It's such a big win that, we can spend that time doing these, one-to-one training sessions or whatever it may be, but enabling and empowering the customer to be able to do that themselves is really great to see. And from a human side of things, when we're talking about dealing with humans, that's such a critical piece, right? And it starts to lay that foundation and foundational layer of advocacy and loyalty just by kind of enabling the customer to do that. So really getting an understanding of, first of all, what are the channels that we see our customers using a lot? And this will, of course, come part of the conversation that we're going to have as well. But what are those channels that we see resonate most strongly with our customers? How do we really leverage those to be quite powerful for us? And how do we make sure that we're actually serving the customer's needs, their objectives, what they're trying to do with our solution, and really make sure that we're meeting them in the middle of that process.
Just a great point coming in from Tim Van Doys. There are customers that say they want self-service, but then they're too lazy to go and get it. So then they email the CSM and ask for it. And I think that's a great point. So I think that there is, and lazy, yes. I think that there's probably some truth in that. And I hold my hand up as well. I can be lazy. I can ask a member of my team, can you get me can you get me the report on so and so, instead of doing it myself. And I try not to do that, but it's very easy to do. And particularly as you're the customer, of course, when you are the customer, you're the boss, and therefore you can do that. So, to an extent, then, there are sometimes it's also good to enable options. So we don't, by having a self-service option doesn't mean it's the only option. So we could actually have other options as well. Also, of course, there is an educational part to that. So if we are trying to educate our customer onto the self-service system, then instead of coming back with the report ourselves and saying, here it is, see attached, instead you maybe say, here's how to access it. Step 1, log in here. Step 2, go to reports, and step 3, choose the report you want and hit download. I hope that helped. Thank you very much. Or if you're being nice, I've attached it this time, but for future reference, here's how you do it. And so we can kind of gently reinforce the message rather than sort of make anyone uncomfortable about it. But I think it's a very, very good point. Sometimes we want options as well.
Yeah, and I think that's also the options are all helpful, but I think also providing different, like you said, Rick, around okay, maybe it's a knowledge-based article that you link to in an email, but also I think someone also asked in the chat, what are some different ways in different tiers that you can then approach? you can have either pre-recorded content that you can send. So let's say somebody does like that human interaction, they can get a video, for example, rather than a knowledge-based article. But also one thing I did in a digitally led customer success role is that we would have regular ongoing webinars that were like this, we're one-to-many, where people would come and join and ask their questions. But instead of like a one-to-one where I have to answer your specific question, the generic topic was maybe customer feedback, and everyone asked their questions about customer feedback, limited to only 10 people. So people still feel like they're inclusive and they're part of the conversation, but not necessarily like hundreds where you can't answer everyone's question. Also, another thing that I know a lot of SaaS vendors do is open office hours. So if you can't answer it via an email and your self-service or low-touch customers still want that one-to-one interaction, have office hours. Like say every day or every Thursday at 10 a.m., we do 2 hours of open conversations about whatever topic you want to bring up. Then those are another way that you can interact with a customer without having that one-to-one or that dedicated time, and still give them the flexibility of, oh, I still want one-to-one, or I'm too lazy to go look at a knowledge base. Then you can still talk to me, but know that you're going to be talking to me in a room with other peers as well. So just other thoughts around how else to engage at different levels and different tiers with your customers.
Most definitely. No, most definitely. And I think we should also mention like peer-to-peer as well. We want to encourage our customers to help our customers. Yeah,
definitely.
So and they often have the type of detail of information, the tweaking of the tool to do it, to make it work a certain way that it wasn't intended to work, but works fine if you get it right. Yeah, all that sort of stuff, useful for us to know about. And by the way, we're meant to be talking about customer feedback, and that's maybe something we can include. But I'm also thinking here, because it's troops on the ground, right? They're the ones who are actually using the product or the service in anger, and they are therefore the ones who can perhaps help somebody else who's in exactly the same position but a couple of months behind them, and can then draw upon that as well. So that sort of community aspects, I think very powerful as well.
Agreed. Yeah, I think that's also a nice bridge. So I do want to dive a little deeper and touch upon the notion of customer feedback in a digital era. It is what we're supposed to be talking about, guys. So let's say by adding several digital channels to engage with customers, you're obviously also adding those channels for customers to engage with you. So you might obviously expect a lot of response in the form of maybe questions, but definitely also a lot of customer feedback. And that feedback could be feedback on the communication you're sending them through digital channels itself. But it could also be feedback on the way that they are using your product, or they might they want to figure out how to use your product. And it's definitely also going to be feedback on your product itself and what it's doing, but most likely also what it's not doing. So before all of that feedback just starts flowing in at once and you're faced with this massive list, if you even have one list of feedback and you need to figure out where to start, what can you best do setting this up? What are some of the best practices that you guys have seen there? What really is the true value of collecting customer feedback at a much bigger scale?
I think you need to, I'm going to jump in. I think you need to know why you're collecting it before you even go out and saying, I think a lot of CS professionals always want to collect feedback. It's part of our DNA to be like, oh my gosh, I need to hear what my customer has to say and I have to tell my product team. But take a step back. Even before that, think of why you're collecting feedback. Is it to build a stronger roadmap? Is it to bring in more prospects? Is it to improve your current integrations? Think of why you're collecting that feedback, and that's going to be the basis of, how you go out to do it. And then my other best practice around that is when you do start collecting it, whether you decide to implement that feedback, whether you decide not to, whatever the choice is of your organization, always, always, always tell your customer anything. Let them know and thank them for their feedback. And then also tell them, yep, we're going to use it. This is what you can expect. Or actually, it's a great idea, but it's not something we're looking for this year. So I think my two things I'd say for best practices, really understand why you're collecting that feedback. And then when you start collecting it, make sure you're actually telling your customer yes, no, or in between. Even if it's no, it doesn't hurt telling them no, just telling them something.
the why is so important, exactly as you said, Anika, like the why. We need to understand why are we collecting this feedback. And then the other side of that, similar to your second point as well, is are we ready to take this feedback on? Are we in a position that we can actually do something with it or communicate it back to the customer effectively? If we are not in a position to do that, then we need to be conscious of being able to manage expectations around that as well, because it's really tough from a customer point of view to listen to their feedback, take it on board, and then it goes into a bit of a black hole. Nobody gets an update on it, and it really breaks down that confidence. And we really need to make sure that when we ask that question, and exactly as you said, Anika, like we're always asking, like, do you have any feedback on this? How was this QBR? What do you think about this latest release? What do you think about this open beta that we're running? Are we ready to take that information on board and feed it back through the correct channels so something gets actioned, done about it, or we get a firm answer?
Yeah, I think feedback is always valuable, of course. Always valuable, but you're quite right, Annika and Guprem. We've got to know why we want it and what we're going to be doing with it, because otherwise that value is devalued. It becomes far less valuable. So I would also like to reiterate what Annika said, is that we should always thank the customer for it at a minimum. Giving feedback into a vacuum is actually quite difficult. It's because the customer doesn't even know, are we listening? It can be very frustrating to not know whether you're being heard. So at the minimum, to let them know we are actually listening to you, we have read your comments or listened to your comments, I think is a minimal sort of courtesy, I think, that we can do. We don't have to say, if they are saying we would like you to change your product to be like this, of course we don't have to say yes. We don't have to do what our customers tell us to do or recommend us to do. That's our decision. That's why we're in our business and they're in theirs, right? But that doesn't mean we can't politely say thank you very much, for the idea. And that will now go into our ideas pot, and we will most definitely, we will review all ideas from all customers, right? You don't have to say, well, we're not doing that. You must be kidding. We don't. That's irrelevant to them. What's relevant to them is that we took them seriously, we thanked them for it, and we will be reviewing it. So yes, loads of different reasons for feedback, loads of different points in the customer journey where we can get that feedback as well. Right from why did they make the purchasing decision? Why did they choose us? What an exciting thing to get feedback about, right through to, well, why are you leaving us then? And many points in between about them. So the customer journey they're going on and the things that they're, but also, as Annika said, about us, about the fact that we are looking to improve our quality in a certain area, or looking to develop a new product in a certain area, or whatever that is. So whatever that is, we've got a purpose. We design our systems and processes appropriately to get the feedback that is going to be the best feedback for that purpose.
Yeah, and I really love and would like to stress that, which I think is a really good tip, of always responding, even if it's just thanking the customer, because I think that's the good thing to do, and that's also the hard thing, or the thing that you hear most when speaking to other customer success leaders or just customer success managers, is basically, if we acknowledge a certain type of feedback, but we already know that we're not going to do anything with this, will us actually just replying and saying no eventually show up in my health score? And will the customer be very unhappy because of it? And how do you then manage that? Should you then just not respond or anything like that? And I really love the notion of just thanking them in the first place. I think that's always the best thing to do, because it shows that you care and that you're being serious about this. But then also, how do you then deal with the rest of the conversation? How do you politely say, I'm sorry, but this is not a direction that we're taking in our product?
I just think honesty. To be quite brutally frank, I think honesty. First of all, you don't need to tell customers everything. Okay, there's no need, there's no requirement. But if they are asking you the question, I've told you 10 times now, you should do this with your product, and you still haven't done it. Why? Well, okay, now you that's a confrontational question from a customer, and you're going to need to deal with it. But you don't I can't think when that's ever happened to me, that particular situation. Because if somebody says, like, I've got a great idea for your product, you should really just have this pink elephant button on every third page, and it pops up a pink elephant cartoon, people are going to love it. And I'll be saying, yeah, thank you very much. We really appreciate your feedback. I should definitely be putting that in with all the other ideas, and we should be reviewing it. Okay, I don't need to say that's a stupid idea. Yeah. I don't need to tell them that, or even it's a sensible idea, but it's just not the direction we're going in. We don't like pink elephants. We like purple rhinoceroses. It's just a personal thing. So, but if the customer does ask the question, right, well, then you've got to give them a frank answer and say, thank you very much. We really appreciate you. The truth of the matter is that obviously we've got to go in the direction that best serves all our customers, and it transpires that isn't something that the majority of our customers are interested in. So even though it may be a great idea from your perspective, from our point of view, obviously it's not going to serve the needs of all our customers.
Yeah, I would also, I think I'm going to echo what Emily said in the chat about setting expectation early and often with customers is usually, Rick, what you said, honesty, totally agree, early and often. And then the third thing I'm going to add to that is excite them about something else. Like when you give them feedback that they're not going to get their said feature that's going to be a game changer for their team. Get them excited about something else. There are probably 10 other things your product team is developing that's super exciting that you can then go and get them excited about. Yes, tell them, awesome feedback. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We will take it into consideration in the future. But for now, I'd love to share with you X, Y, and Z because I think that you guys can get real value from this. So be honest, let them know it's not going to be a thing right now, but also you're their customer success manager. You know what their big goals are, and there might be another thing that they might not be looking at that they need to be reminded is coming down in the product roadmap as well. So I'd say another way to kind of shift the conversation, and rather than giving bad news, shift it to exciting new things that they can focus on.
Yeah, I love that.
Also,
I was just going to say, from a more tactical point of view as well. It's always good to have that internal alignment from a product perspective as well, to understand that, when we're saying no to a customer and rooting it in that concept of from our roadmap perspective, that's not where we're going. We can root that in the confidence that we have that information and we know that. So making sure from an internal organization perspective, you're on the kind of same page from a product perspective, from a CS perspective, from just a wider go-to-market team, that you're all on that same page and kind of communicating as that one team approach. And exactly as Anika said, continue that excitement on all those other things that may come up. Customers are going to use the product in so many different ways that you'd never have imagined, never have accounted for. So it's always great to collect that because, it may well be something that we haven't thought about, and we can make that pivot. We can start to include that. But we need to resonate that kind of concept, that concept of making sure the customer feels heard, that, we understand their use case. And from our perspective, from a customer success point of view, or a team that knows our product well, that we are in a good position as well to coach the customer and advise them on if they can utilize something within the product that exists today or that is coming that will suit that purpose better. Because from a customer point of view, they don't know what we're thinking from a roadmap or from a product perspective. So they may have this great idea, but if it's solved in a way that's coming up, or something that could be done today by thinking quite creatively, we need to go in and we need to be super confident in being able to really bring the customer back on board with that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe having enough humility, as Kat was just saying there, right? It's the key is not their product request, it's the reason behind the product request. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. And maybe having the humility to realize that although on the face of it, when you first read the fact that they were suggesting a pink elephant button is just ridiculous, of course we're not going to do that, actually then understanding why they were suggesting it, you might find something that you didn't know. Yeah. I've certainly been guilty, I have to say, of just assuming I know, and then finding out something that was just completely left of field. It's very creative, and the idea itself, well, there's no way we're doing that, but pink elephants, no. Purple rhinos, just maybe. Yeah.
Exactly. You can be surprised. I mean, I've seen a couple of people in chat now say that they sell pink elephants.
I know.
I did see someone say they sold pink elephants.
Apparently, it's nothing to left field there. So on that note, also, I think it's time to get a little bit more tactical. So when you're handling product feedback, or when you're figuring out whether or not to do something with a certain piece of feedback that's given from a customer, who should be involved? How do you do that? Who do you basically drag into the conversation? Who calls the shots?
Are we talking in digital led right now, Remco?
Sure.
I would say it has to be the customer success manager in combination with product. I'd say that both have to take onus and ownership on it. I think the customer success manager should be the one asking for it and saying thank you for it and explaining the reason. But if it is something that the product team is technically wanting to dive deeper in, whether it's like, oh, great idea, we want to maybe talk a little bit further about developing this with you and you becoming a beta tester, that's when product should be looped in and should actually have a seat at the table and should be speaking to that customer about what it is you're looking for, because we are actually thinking about developing that in 6 to 12 months time. So I think the first port of contact should be a CSM, digital CS, whoever that is, but should always loop in product when something falls into roadmap, and that customer might be a beta tester for that future release and feedback that they're giving, and also the opposite of why it's definitely not going to be on the product roadmap, and then have product explain why not and what else there is to look at as well. So I think there's two people, but always contact via the CSM, and then the product manager owns the other half of that conversation, which is the technical development side of that.
Assuming it's a product feedback thing, right?
A product idea.
Because if it's not a product feedback thing, then you may not want to involve product. So for example, if it's a financial thing, you might want to involve finance, right? Sure. So just as an example. So I think, again, it comes back to, what type of feedback are we gathering, or how are we using it? Why are we using it? Is it in order to, do some clever marketing that's going to appeal to a particular segment? Is it because we want to improve our product? Is it because we want to improve the quality of a particular step in the journey that our customers are telling us at the moment is very frustrating to them? What is it? And then, of course, whatever that thing is well then, who is the owner of the capabilities that make up that our ability to deliver in that area? And they're the ones, I guess, who are going to want to get involved, I presume.
Yeah, and it also comes back to that point around the feedback and the different channels that it can start to come through on, because it's great that it can come through to the CSM relays that back to the product and champions that. There's also some of those areas where it comes through. For example, on a support ticket, for instance, we see that symptom come through straight away where customers trying to achieve something and they can't, and in order to get to the root cause, we have wonderful friends on the support side who are finding that out and getting to that point. And then all of a sudden we have another kind of grouping, an area of great feedback requests or product enhancements that are sitting in a support queue that we also need to get good visibility of. Now where that sits and who champions that, again, I agree, Anika, that CSM should be owning that and really driving that through, because again, it's their customer. We want to see them successful, and of course that's owned by multiple people. But we start to see these kind of other silos potentially if we haven't got a good idea or understanding of where the data sits at the moment, or a system that's collecting that all in one place, where these product enhancements sit, and we really want to get it ahead of, just to make sure that we're communicating, thanking the customer for all that, and communicating the viability and if it's going to be delivered. Yeah,
and again, a good bridge. So thank you for that. So do you guys have any tips in regards to tooling or something else that you can actually use to do this well, and maybe also to do this in a central sort of way so that everyone can maybe see the feedback? I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people over the past, I don't know, 2 years or something. And some people might ask through feedback through like an NPS survey, for example, like is mentioned in the chat right now. Some have just an Excel sheet per customer. Some have, I don't know, maybe a type form or something else. What are generally some of the best practices that you guys have seen in regards to tooling for capturing feedback?
I think that totally depends on your maturity of your feedback as well. But I think that it also depends on your maturity of your organization. So I've been at a 5-person startup. I've been at a 400-person scale up. I've been at different organizations that do different things. So I think that you definitely have to look at the size of your organization, but there's nothing wrong with a spreadsheet. Yeah, let's not hate on the spreadsheet. That's like the start of some great things on a spreadsheet. I've done it on a spreadsheet, but I've used a number of different tools. I'll start like just listing out for different reasons. So Delighted, when you collect NPS survey feedback, which then pushes to Slack so that the whole organization can see feedback. Typeform to do more like in-depth CS, like CSAT surveys. I've used PlanHat in the past and then added my product managers as well in a tool like a customer success management tool. I'm going to also say in Untitled because I work at Untitled, so another great way to capture product feedback. I've used Pendo in the past to also do live up in chat and even get customers to give feedback as they're navigating in app through things. So I'd say you really need to look at the size of your organization and how you're going to collect that feedback and what you're going to do with it. And then B, do you want it visible across multiple people, multiple different departments? And that's going to depend on what type of tool you then implement and when. So again, you have to evaluate where you are and what kind of organization you're in. But there are numbers. I could go into detail about how many different tools I've used in the past, but definitely depends on what type of organization you're at.
Yeah, and then maybe to very quickly respond to that. So what are then some of the, I don't know, leading indicators, let's call them, in an organization of a certain size that then make you choose for a certain solution? Is it, I don't know, is it the amount of users, different, what would make you choose a certain tool at a certain size of a company?
Yeah, definitely. So I would choose a tool that gives me visibility between, for example, product managers and customer success managers. If my product team was in Australia and then my CSM team was in the US, and I wanted to have visibility to make sure that, when you're not in the same office, which we're all now kind of digital, you need to have a one place fits all where it's shared and pushed to even a public channel on Slack. So I would use a tool that maybe integrates with Slack so that no matter what time of day that feedback is coming in, everyone has visibility to it. If you're an organization that's more like where you have tons, like thousands of customers, and you just need to fire out as many surveys as possible, I would use something that's automated, that's easy to use, maybe Delighted or even Typeform, where you can quickly send out tens of thousands of surveys in minutes kind of thing. So it really depends on what your needs are. But those would be some of the key indicators, or maybe like the number of customers you have and where your entire organization is located and where that feedback has to be stored would probably be key indicators of what type of tool you should purchase or use.
I'd like to make a couple of observations, if I may. I think my first observation is it's not just tools. Okay, tools are one part of capability, but they are alongside process and people. All right. So yes, the right tools, but also please, yes, the right process, and yes, the right people. And if you don't get those right, you can give a child of 4, a fantastic tool like Untitled, but don't expect the great result that you'd get if you gave that tool to Annika, right? Okay, so it's the people and the process alongside the tools, and it seems like we forget this every time we go out running around going, which tool shall I buy? Which tool shall I buy? Well, hang on a minute, okay, before you get tooled up, let's just take a step back and think about, well, what process are you gonna have, and you need to design that process. And I would suggest that maybe comes before you select the tool, at least to an extent. Now, the detail of the process obviously is also going to involve how you use that tool, of course, and who is going to be using it, and what training do they need, if they need training, or at least, and by the way, I'm not talking about formal training like coming through me on a course or something. I mean, training on how to do good research through customer feedback. It's a big subject. So then the other point that I wanted to make is around that, which is my start point actually would be to understand at least the basics of how that works. So I would say, well, let's start with the concept of qualitative and quantitative feedback and analysis. So your quantitative feedback tells you a little bit about lots, okay, and your qualitative feedback tells you lots, but about a very more niche specific subject area. We would tend to start with quantitative analysis. So we go out with a survey, like NPS is an example of a survey, but there are obviously many others that we can ask, like an evaluation type survey where we're asking simple questions, rate out of 1 to 5, your experience of this, your experience of that, what you like about this, what you don't like about that. And then we can collate that. We're not asking much from any one customer, but we're going out to all our customers, for example, and then we're collating that and we're looking at the averages and we're gaining meaningful, and what we're looking for is patterns. And maybe what we find is like, oh, that's a 4.7 out of 5, that's a 4.9 out of 5, that's a 4.8 out of 5, that's a 3.8, okay, that's a 2.1, oh dear. That one, that's the one we might then decide to follow up on with the qualitative analysis. Why is that only a 2.1? Now, I can't ask all my 10,000 customers or however many I've got in for a one-to-one interview. I don't have the time. They don't have the time. Some of them don't live nearby, whatever. I'm going to have to then pick a smaller representative sample of my customer base or my segment that I'm working with, maybe even just 2 or 3 if that's all I can do, but it's better than none. And then ask them, get them in for a qualitative feedback session, which is either going to be, for example, a one-to-one interview or perhaps a focus group with a number, like maybe a dozen customers together, and I ask questions and I get the collective response. They debate it between us and say, the group thinks this. Which is a really powerful way of doing it. But again, do I have the tools? Do I have the experience to facilitate a focus group? Do I know how to write neutrally worded questions that don't lead them down a ladder of saying more or less of what I want to hear, for example? So I think there's a lot more to it than just tools. I just want to throw that in. I think tools are really important, of course, but alongside the other parts of the capability, which is the process and the people.
Yeah, and I really like what you touched upon there, because that was also going to be my next question.
Sorry.
Really, really annoying, Rick. So often you find that customer success teams or just companies in general will ask for feedback and then get a load of feedback in. Let's just assume product feedback for now. So they'll ask for feedback on a certain feature or something else. They'll get a load of customer feedback and requests and just maybe general complaints in, and then they'll have the data. They'll take it internally into their teams and into their product management meetings and into their customer success meetings, etc. But they then forget that there has been a request from you to the customer to actually give feedback. It's basically an opening of a conversation, but they then forget to actually continue that conversation. So what are some of the best practices or best ways to also keep your customer involved as you're figuring out what feedback to actually take into account, or which product requests or new feature ideas you're actually going to work on? So you just already mentioned like a beta group or a focus group to actually, or maybe an advisory board to actually work on these things. But is there anything else that we could do?
That point you mentioned there for advisory board, that's a really, really good idea. I think that's really powerful. Get your customers, your friendly ones who are willing to do so, or even your unfriendly ones, because of course you learn most from those.
You learn more from them,
if they're willing, to form part of a committee or a board that meets on a regular basis. So again, like a focus group, something like a one-off thing, but that concept of that regular get in touch, how are we doing and how is it changing, is are we going up or down, I think is also really, really powerful. Most definitely. And having, again, that that voice of the customer being heard, being represented in decision making, as much as we can within the boundaries of reasonableness, I think is a really cool idea. I like that.
Yeah, I think on top of advisory boards as well, because totally love beta testing advisory boards. I think also just getting I think Rick, you talked about this earlier, but getting your customers in a round table and discussing how else they're using the product as well. So, I mean, there might be a 6-month, 12-month wait for even an advisory board or a beta testing group to actually even kick off and get things started. Like you said, Remco, there's might be a wait time. So why not have a customer roundtable discussing either how one of a similar customer in the similar vertical is using the tool in a different way to inspire them to even start using it that way. And then obviously then they're a little bit distracted, because I think sometimes the wait is the hardest part for a customer. Is just, try to think of other ways to really inspire and innovate your customers to use other parts of your tool while they wait for that feature to be into beta or whatever. And then also inspire your customers to speak to each other, because I think now more than ever, we can actually get our customers easily in a Zoom room, and have them talk to each other, where we could never do that before. We'd have to set up a massive event where, there was catering, there was people there was, a focus group or anything. But now we can just be like, hey, let's get customer X and Y on a call and let's just talk about feature X, because we're waiting for feature Y to show up. So I think that's another great way to keep customers engaged.
It's so powerful, right? We talk, because we're in this work, we talk so much about advocacy all the time, but it is so powerful talking about advocates and getting advocates to talk to prospects and customers at all times. It's just, it makes them so confident and so willing to be able to share their experiences, because they, first of all, they don't feel like they're being sold to, or it's a safe space to have that conversation. Because ultimately, with feedback, we're talking about also, customer persona as well, and what type of customers feel confident to give us feedback in different channels, in different forms. And some don't want anybody from the company there. They just want to speak to another customer to see if their experience is the same, or they're very happy to leave us a wonderful kind of comment on an NPS score, be them detractor or promoter. But we need to be able to cater to those different personas as well, because that feedback is so critical to everything we do, and is critical to us improving our product, our process, being able to make the customer successful as well. And so being able to cater towards all these different avenues that they can go down is such an important thing to do.
Yeah, and I want to very quickly jump in on the use of powerful there, because I think it's obviously it's powerful for customers involved if you invite them into like a round table or something else, but it's also powerful for you and your company to show that you're actually doing something with customer feedback, that it's not just you asking for it and then you'll never hear anything about it again, or from us again. Basically, we're now calling that closing the loop, and I think that's a really great quote, because you always should close the loop on these things. If there's like a product request and your product team actually decides to build that, then you also need to treat that as the amazing thing that it is, because that's a customer that had a brilliant idea, you've built it, and now it's available for the rest of the customers. So you need to scream it through some channel or something else to the rest of the customers as well, to show that this is actually a thing and this works.
I will just say though, I think that because everything we said, I agree with what you said, Remco, Gupram, Annika. I will just say also though, we are beginning to sound quite optimistic in terms of the amount of feedback our customers going to be, the amount of time our customers going to be willing to spend with us. And of course, some of us may have the luxury of like a really important product that is absolutely critical to the customer's success, and they are invested in it, and they are willing to put a lot of time to help us make it right. But that's not going to be the case for all of us. And yeah, sometimes we're going to have to get what we're given and be thankful for it. So I think we also do need to be realistic about the amount of time we're going to ask our customers for, and the amount of times they're going to say, yeah, sorry, I'd love to, but I can't. So again, I just to really, put a dampener on the whole thing. I just wanted to say that really.
Very quickly, just to jump on it. Yeah, just because very, very quickly to jump on that as well. I mean, that's in the explicit forms of feedback as well, but there'll be very implicit forms of feedback that we'll see a lot of the time that we're not necessarily reaching out for. And this will be, a very quick example, just product usage, for instance. That's an implicit form of feedback as well. What are they using? Why are they not using it? They purchased it for this reason, but we can see they're not using that. So there will also be those implicit channels that we may not be searching for them, but it's there. And that's the sort of that's where, from an organizational perspective, we need to be able to get an idea of what's happening.
And I think it's also where I was saying earlier about combining quantitative with qualitative.
Yes.
And the quantitative should be try and make it really easy for the customer to say yes, I'll do that for you, so that you get that the numbers in, and then that tells you something. And then with the qualitative, well, then you don't need all your customers to give you that extra time. Pick the ones and find the ones who are willing to give you 20 minutes or willing to give you an hour and a half or whatever it is that you're asking for, and that way you're going to get the best of both worlds. So that may be a good approach in that circumstance.
Definitely. It's sad to say, but we're out of time. So I am going to round up here. So I want to thank our panel for sharing their wisdom with us today. I hope it has been useful for everyone. And also I want to thank our audience, or want to thank you, our audience, for the amazing questions, but also the amazing activity in the chat. I see a lot of LinkedIn URLs going around, so be sure to connect with each other. That's the whole purpose of this whole thing, so that's quite great. The webinar is recorded, as I mentioned in the beginning, so we will make sure to share that recording as quickly as possible after the end of the webinar. And also any questions, I see there are 3 or 4 or so that we haven't yet covered. We will definitely make sure to follow up on afterwards. So guys, thank you, and thank you for being here. Thank you, our panel, for being here as well. I loved it, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thank you, Remco. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.